Hey everybody, final thoughts time for Pandemic Rising Tide, which is the third game, I believe, in this whole Pandemic offshoot series. First you had, was it Reign of Cthulhu, and then Pandemic Iberia, and now Pandemic Rising Tide. I think this is my favorite of the bunch. I've enjoyed them all. And this one really pushes Pandemic much harder. The other ones, they were just like, oh look, this is still Pandemic, but let's just throw some interesting things on the top. This is almost unrecognizable as Pandemic, replacing constantly exploding and expanding virus cubes with water. With all the properties of water, as flooding happens, the water just automatically spills into adjacent regions, and you can try to shore up your defenses to keep it from spreading. You can try to pump it out, but eventually the waters will rise and drown you. It's really, really cool. And this game really, to be successful, forces you to completely rewire your Pandemic brain. If you have played a lot of Pandemic, the old tricks just don't work, and you will find yourself floundering very, very quickly because the water, it's alive. It's not just something that's sitting there just waiting for you to come along, and every once in a while, oh, we're just going to grow a little bit, we're going to fester a little bit, but no, here the water is moving. It's it's unpredictable. That's not true. It is very predictable. This is still a game like any Pandemic where you spend all your time trying to really think out the best moves and mitigating risk, because after you have drawn a few cards from the Rising Tide deck, eventually you're going to take them, reshuffle them, and put them back on top so you have imperfect information about the areas that are going to be hit. That's the core of Pandemic. That's what's always given it its secret sauce. That is still here. But now you are playing, you're on offense instead of defense, basically. Now it is all about you not saying, "Oh no, look at all these, look at all these viruses I have to get rid of." Now you're actually trying to shore up your defenses before not viruses, but the water can spread. And when the water finds a way through because your defenses were not adequate, then you're going to be on the defense. Then it's got you, running to try to keep up. But the interesting thing about this game is, while it puts you under more pressure than regular Pandemic, I mean, literally, the entirety of the ocean is on the edges of this board, pushing in, trying to crash and crush you from all angles. Well, almost all angles, from the west and from the north. The fact that this game gives you maybe the most powerful tool in any version of Pandemic, and I'm including the Pandemic Legacies, those water pumps, that once you get them set up, and they're hard, it's a real investment to get those things set up, but once they're there, it is an automatic cube removal system for the rest of the game that is just absolutely incredible. I could see that kind of thing being retroactively put into a regular Pandemic expansion too, but here it is such a crucial cog in this overall ecosystem of disasters that you're trying to manage. But all that stuff's really cool, but I think the most important thing, the thing I love about Rising Tide more than anything else, isn't the water and the water pumps and the way it kind of shakes up what cubes are and what they mean and how you deal with them. It's the objectives. I can't imagine not playing this game, because it's interesting. It's a variant. It's optional to say, hey, take the 4 decks of objective cards, one for each of the 4 colors, shuffle them up and pick one, and so you get a different combination of challenges you have to face every time. Why is that a variant? That should totally be the standard way to play, because it's awesome. I absolutely love it. This gives this so much more variety, so much more interesting and exciting. Wow, okay, Pandemic is always cool. You set it up, you see, okay, what are the hot spots in the area, what are we going to do? But then you just set about doing the kind of stuff you always do. This game, every time you play it, it's going to be a very, very different experience, because you are called upon to do a very different combination of things to achieve a very different set of goals than you would normally do, whether it's rebuilding population or doing the big masterworks, which is the equivalent of the original Pandemic, or setting up defenses all over the place. The variety that comes, and then on top of that, you've got the variety of the different types of playable characters you've got, and then on top of that, you've got the variety that you never know exactly what areas are going to be strong and which are going to be weak. Just makes this really amazing. I love the objective system here. I mean, it's one of the things I raved about most in the original Pandemic Legacy, that, oh, look, we're creating variable objectives in Pandemic. This is so amazing. I can't wait. Someday, hopefully, this will be retroactively put back into Pandemic. And now it has. Now, it's interesting. I'm not going to say this is perfect. While this is my favorite of the offshoots, I probably have maybe more complaints about this one than any of the other ones too, because I do not agree with most of the production decisions I think that were made in this. The number one being the issue of the way the board itself is represented. Pandemic has always been, look, let's show you a picture of the world or of the country or the peninsula or whatever it is that you're actually trying to, fight fires on, metaphorically speaking. But let's just layer a very simple, easy to read networks of dots over the top of that map, connected by lines, so it's simple at a glance to understand the situation you're in, to see how everything connects, to figure out what your ideal path is going to be, to spot potential weaknesses that could bite you in the butt. This game throws that line grid network away and instead has a map where I don't know if it's actually actively trying to show the exact county layouts of the Netherlands. Maybe it is. I know there's been a huge attention to detail in the real history of the Dutch people's amazing centuries-long battle with the ocean. I just absolutely love the history and the flavor. I loved reading about the projects that happened in real life and how we rebuild them in this game. But the way it's presented where, no, it's a map with a whole bunch of lines in. I mean, if you're in this zone, you can see that, oh, well, it connects over here, 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 here. That becomes so much harder to read, so much tougher to, at a glance, identify issues. And if you watched all the way through my extended run through, you saw it started to hit me that it's very easy in this game to miss, oh, wait a minute, was water supposed to go from there to there? Oh, I didn't see that little connection. Or, oh, I thought that was a river. I didn't realize it was a connector between two different locations. And if they had gone the standard Pandemic route, just show us a really pretty map and then put the grid on top, even if you have to readjust the grid a little bit, even if you kind of sacrifice some of the historical accuracy of where these things are relative to each other or their relative importance in history to make it more playable, I wish they'd done that. I've actually seen folks on Board Game Geek who have posted, the exact technical layout of what this map is, but done as a series of dots and lines, and I can just instantly, easily see, oh my gosh, that is so much easier to read. And that means if I'm spending less time trying to parse this gorgeous, don't get me wrong, this beautiful map. I love the subdued hues and all of that. I think it looks great, but it is just tougher to read, and I'm just not a fan of that. I wish they'd gone the standard way. Don't get me wrong, you'll get used to it. You will come to begrudgingly accept it because the gameplay is so good, but it is a shame. I wish they just stuck with the original, the standard Pandemic network presentation. My other issue is, interestingly, something I had an issue with in Pandemic Legacy Season 2, because they did this same trick there. Every location, or city in regular Pandemic, has multiple cards in the disaster deck and in the player deck. And I'm not going to go into any details about what that means for Pandemic Legacy Season 2 and how it works there, but I can say I wasn't a fan of it there. I'm not a fan of it here because it really ups the memory element of the game. Pandemic is always an important element, is trying to, recognize, right, okay, these are the three places that are most likely to be hit because after we reshuffle the deck and put it back on top, we remember Chicago has been hit 15 times already. I know it's the most dangerous. That's why we've got to really protect ourselves there. The same thing happens here, but now there are two cards for Flevoland. I don't know how to pronounce it. Apologies, by the way, for any Dutch viewers. I'm sure I mangled everything, but it was impossible. There's just so much Dutch in this box. But anyway, now I've got to remember that there's two of them. Have I seen both? Have I seen once? Once I reshuffled, did both of them go back in? It's fine. It's not as bad as it was in Pandemic League Season 2, where there's upwards of 3 per location, which just got absolutely insane. And Jen and I had to start using visual aids that we bring from outside of the game. We almost had to do it here, particularly because, again, it's not like the names of these locations to a native English speaker, to an American like myself, are even remotely user-friendly. Oh my gosh, these big, incredibly long tongue twister names for all these locations, and then on top of that, so just trying to remember the names and, and where they are in relation to each other. But now, oh wait, there's 2, and have they both been hit? Have one of them hit? Right, one of these 2 things, one of the 2 purples is getting hit twice. One of them is only once. I don't remember which one. Why do I have to remember this? I'm not crazy about that. But again, The gameplay here is so fantastic, I'm willing to forgive it because it's just such a really cool escalation. Those objectives are amazing. The way water works is phenomenal, and the way that it makes you just throw away everything you thought you knew about how to win a pandemic and approach it from a whole new perspective is phenomenal. Now, this is interesting. I mean, for all of these offshoot games, Matt Leacock, Mr. Pandemic himself, has teamed up with designers from around the world. This time, it was Joran Duman, who is well known for his Splatterspiel, super duper heavy economic simulation Euros like The Great Zimbabwe and Antiquity and a Food Chain Magnet. Yeah, that was a big hit for him last year. And I can definitely see his influence because if nothing else, this is certainly the most fiddly Pandemic has ever been. In part because, like I was talking about, that grid just makes it harder to read and follow what's going on, but the fact that you're also having to keep track of all these sticks and keep them rotated and put down, and when you put them down right, are these two things connected? Is there, oh, this one's high ground because it's a slightly different color. We don't have to worry about it. Can we move through it? Can we not move through it? There's just a lot more, again, to parse, to take in. And I do find myself, while enjoying the heck out of this, wishing it was just a little bit easier to, at a glance, grok everything that's going on. And again, if it were the grid system, you could just have, not whole sticks, but you could just have little dike tokens, little round tokens that you would put on the lines between the actual connecting locations. And that would be so much easier. You would have lines coming in from the ocean, so I could at a glance see, right, is the ocean coming in? Oh, it's not coming over there, because I can see, here's the, whatever it is, the 7 or 8 lines, and I've got dikes on all of them. Oh, I don't have a dike on that one. The water's coming in. Because there is so much fiddliness with making sure, because the water moves on its own. It isn't like a virus that just sits there and waits for events to happen. It moves on its own. There's more upkeep in this game. And that would be fine. It wouldn't be a problem at all if they'd had the original Pandemic presentation, but because they have this new, busier Pandemic presentation combined with the fact that there's just more upkeep, it's an unfortunate black eye in an otherwise absolutely stellar feather and cap production. Absolutely adore it. Totally a keeper. Like I said, in spite of my issues, my favorite of the 3 offshoots, and I can't wait to see where the Pandemic X series goes in the future. But that's it, folks. That is Pandemic Rising Tide. And I'm going to say thanks very much for watching. And have a very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.